Good morning. So, welcome to my coffee TED Talk. First things first, kettle. Then here is everything that I use periodically. So I always store my beans in a mason jar to keep the oxygen out so they keep longer. I always grind everything fresh. And this is my Chemex. I bought this lid separately. So the Chemex comes with paper filters, and I probably will not repurchase them because they're too difficult for Ryan to use. But I did purchase this little guy on Amazon for, I don't know, probably $12. And I rarely use the base for it because it's meant to brew a single cup, but to me it makes a really weak, crappy cup of coffee. But I use it in this guy, and it fits pretty well. And that's honestly what I use the majority of the time. Then we have the classic French press. Which is pretty simple to use. But now I'm just going to wait for my water. Remember, if you're grinding your beans fresh in a Chemex or a French press, you should try to get my coffee thing says percolator grind, but you want a more coarse grind so you're not drinking all of the, I don't know, little coffee beans. So I'm just preheating my French press with hot tap water in it. You don't have to do this. It's just, it keeps your coffee hotter a little bit longer because there's no way that you can keep this warm on the stove or anything like that. As to how much coffee to use, the general rule of thumb is a tablespoon per cup, but I don't play around. I fill this guy up every time for almost every method of coffee that I make, and that way I don't have to think about anything. So I'll fill that up and use it for the Chemex, which honestly is a little bit bigger than this one, but I really don't care. As far as water temp goes, this may be more on the coffee snob level, but my handy dandy kettle came with a thermometer. But you never want to put boiling water, or you never want to brew your coffee with boiling water. So this little guy recommends between 190 and 200, and it boils at 212. So if you don't have a kettle like this and you just have a regular kettle, once it boils, you can just stop it for a little bit, take the lid off, and let it cool down for, I don't know, maybe 30 seconds to a minute, just so you don't scorch your little beans. So that's good enough because I'm impatient. So after I preheated this, I just dumped the water out and I added in my beans. And then comes the blooming. So what you're supposed to do is just saturate, try to get all of your grounds wet. This is hard with one hand. Let me turn. And again, this is like a ridiculous fancy step that you really don't have to do, but once I started doing it, I felt so fancy I didn't want to stop doing it. So, okay. They are, oh shit, they're all saturated, and what you're supposed to do is wait about 30 seconds. This is called blooming, and when you saturate them like this, the CO2, I think, tries to start bubbling up and escaping, and it just makes for a less bitter brew, apparently. And honestly, it's 30 seconds, and I like doing it. So, and then once you pour later, you'll have a little crust develop on the top, and then you know you did it right. Again, you don't have to do this step whatsoever, but I like it. So then, once you've waited your 30 seconds, French press is super easy. All you do is just add all your water, and look at that pretty foam. I don't know if that happens because you do the blooming, but it's just so pretty. I like to pour it slow. You don't really have to. And then once you fill it up to the top, or just shy of the top, I'll put the lid back on it and I'll let it sit for 4 minutes. And then push the plunger down. So that's it for that. Then you wait 4 minutes. The difference in taste of the Chemex and the French press, because the French press brews the grounds in the water at the same time, it's more thick, not thick, but like a thicker mouthfeel, and it's gonna be a little bit oilier, so it's gonna have more of a full-bodied taste. And the Chemex, because it brews through a drip method and the water's not staying soaking with the beans for as long, it's going to be a little bit thinner and lighter. This is fairly similar, so all I did was grind a whole jar or whole lid or whatever. I dump it into the stainless steel filter that I put over the top, and then I think my water is ready. So you do the same thing where you're supposed to bloom your grounds, but you can see it better up here, so it's prettier. And with the Chemex, this little gooseneck kettle really does come in handy, because it's much harder to pour nice and slowly when you have a big kettle. So I did go out to Amazon and buy this for like, I think it was 20 bucks. But it's just so dainty and I love it so much. Anyway, so we're blooming for about 30 seconds. And every once in a while you will see it like crack open and bubbles or CO2 come out. And that's pretty cool to watch. Another reason why I choose the stainless steel filter over the paper filters is these really are a pain in the ass. So you have to unfold them somehow with one hand. No. So you put them in. You put them in before any of this happens, and you have to wet them. So you put them into the Chemex, then you have to heat the filter with hot water, because otherwise it will taste, your coffee will taste papery. So you just get, you saturate the filter and then you dump that water out. Then you're ready to put your grounds in, into your wet filter that you have in there. So it just, I don't know, it's an extra step. It does have a different taste than it will when you do it with the stainless steel filter like this, but honestly it's just not worth it. It takes longer. So you're supposed to just go nice and slow with this, but honestly sometimes I go slow, sometimes I just fill it up until the top, but you can hear how much quicker it goes when you fill it up. So I'll just do that. And I'll wait a second for it to go down, or if I have the patience, I'll just stand here and pour it pretty slowly. And that's it. It takes, I don't know, probably 5 minutes. If you put hot water into your kettle, by the time it takes to boil and for you to stand here and pour this, it's probably 5 to 6 minutes, we'll say. But it's just so pretty. I don't preheat the Chemex because it is safe to sit on my gas stove. So once I brew it, I will put it on the lowest possible flame without risking the flame going out. And I'll just set it on the stove. And that's why I bought this little lid too, because I thought the lid was going to help it stay warm. It doesn't, but sitting it on the stove is perfect. I don't know, there's something therapeutic with the process, so I actually enjoy doing this. But I've been doing it for so long that I don't miss the coffee maker. And if I'm in a rush during the week for coffee, cold brew is my go-to. I honestly don't make coffee like this unless it's the weekend. Even if it's cold, I'm lazy and I love cold brew so much. I realized I didn't really talk about the coffee water ratio. So when I first bought this, I just did some massive Googling, and they were so intense that they wanted you to measure it out by the gram, which I do have a scale and I did do, just to see. But for me, it's essentially a full kettle and a full grinder of beans, and that's just my go-to recipe. I'm not measuring things. ain't nobody got time for that. So you just let it all filter through, and then when you're done, all I do is literally I dump that in the trash because I wish I was composting, but I'm not right now, and I rinse the filter with hot water, and that thing is done. And that is Chemex. And here is my next obsession. This is my cold brew method. This is a coffee sock, which I bought on Amazon, and the company is out of Austin, which is pretty cool. So it's like organic cotton. This particular size I bought is meant to go in a 1/2 gallon mason jar. Crap, I'm not gonna be able to put it back in. So all you do is, I think for a 1/2 gallon, it is 2 cups of ground coffee, and then you just fill it with water. I'm not gonna make this because I'm gonna have a bunch of leftover coffee, but 2 cups of ground coffee, and then you just kind of tie this little baggie up at the top and just shove it in and put the lid on. And you can let it go for 12 to 24 hours. I'll normally do it at night and then pull the bag out in the morning. And that's it. I have quite a few zero waste coffee options, and I like them all.